This season of Tub Talk is brought to you by Barracuda MSP. Every 11 seconds, there's a new ransomware attack. There are so many ransomware attacks that governments are now classifying them as terrorism. And it's not just big companies that are being targeted. Small and medium-sized businesses are becoming victims too. What are you as an MSP doing to help your clients from becoming the next victim? Barracuda MSP is here to help you ensure you and your clients are prepared and protected against the inevitable ransomware attacks. Let Barracuda MSP help you strengthen your ransomware protection plan. As a special offer for Tub Talk listeners, visit barracudamsp.com/Tub Talk and receive a free first month on any subscription you start with Barracuda MSP. That's barracudamsp.com/Tub Talk and receive a free first month on any subscription you start with Barracuda MSP. Thanks to Barracuda MSP for helping bring you Tub Talk. Now, on with the show. Hey there, Richard Tubb here with the latest episode of Tub Talk, the podcast for IT consultants. Now, you'll know that this season we're spotlighting some of the most amazing women in tech. Well, today's guest definitely fits that bill. I'm speaking with Olesia Klevchuk. Now, Olesia is the Principal Product Marketing Manager for Email Security at Barracuda Networks. In her role at Barracuda, Olesia focuses on defining how organizations can protect themselves against advanced email threats, spear phishing, account takeover. She really is an expert in this area. Now, prior to Barracuda, Olesia worked in email security, brand protection, and IT research. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Olesia today. Olesia, welcome to Tub Talk.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you're on the west coast of the US and it's early, so thank you for getting up early to speak to me. Where are you joining us from today? Where do you call home?
So I'm in California. I'm on the west coast, in the Bay Area, actually. So exactly where a lot of the cybersecurity and a lot of the IT companies are based and founded.
Oh, that must be an exciting place to live and work then.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How do you find it getting out to local coffee shops and things like that? Do you tend to bump into lots of other people who work in the tech space?
Yeah, a lot of people around here do work in the tech space. So we kind of like in a little bit of a bubble here in some way. So it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time.
Double-edged sword, yeah. So I don't think there's many people in the managed service provider space who are unfamiliar with Barracuda. But if somebody wasn't familiar with Barracuda, how would you describe what the company does?
Yeah, Barracuda is, what we do is basically we're a cybersecurity company. We provide a lot of different security solutions for organizations all over the world. We work with companies in North America, in Europe, and across Asia Pac. And security is a big word. There's a lot of companies focusing on security. And Barracuda has a lot of different solutions in the email space and network security, application security, data protection. Been around for a while as well. So I'm not surprised that a lot of our MSPs would probably heard of us, especially that Barracuda has always traditionally focused on SMBs and smaller businesses. So it's a nice fit with MSPs who also focus on the same kind of customer size and customer segment.
Yeah. Now, you alluded to the fact that Barracuda has got a really big catalog of some really smart, interesting products. Right now, Olesia, what is the products that you're most excited about? If I could get you to narrow it down to just one.
Well, I do work on email security, so that's what I'm most excited about. If you had somebody else come in from Barracuda, they probably would have said they're excited about a different area. But email security is definitely a great set of products for Barracuda, and it's an important one as well because a lot of threats do come through the email, and the vast majority of data breaches today. If you look at whatever reports you look at, the email phishing attacks are always on the top of the list for the breaches. The networks are hard to penetrate, but the email, everybody receives an email, right? Like how many emails do you receive every day? How many of them come from outside of your organization? And, and it's, and hackers know that. So they found the weakest spot when it comes to getting inside, and they use newer types of techniques to get through, like social engineering attacks, and so forth. So it's, a lot of the time the traditional security solutions that we have for email, like our email gateways, are not always enough because hackers have known them for decades. They've been around for a decade. So they've developed ways to bypass them and to get their hacks and bad emails into users' inboxes and trick them into responding or replying. And investing in the different types of technology, which is some of the things that Barracuda started to develop over the past few years, such as the ones that use artificial intelligence and machine learning, really try to are able to help organizations to find the attacks that do tend to kind of bypass those traditional security solutions that we have in place or had in place for decades.
Yeah, you mentioned, email security, the resources Barracuda put in there. Email security is something that I know Barracuda is very, very well known and respected for. You mentioned there's lots of different vectors nowadays that, cyber criminals can get in. Where are Barracuda focusing their resources on where it comes to email security? Where, if I was to change that question around, put it in another way, where are cyber criminals focusing most of their attention when it comes to trying to break in?
Yeah. So, and where they focus their attention is where we focus our solutions. And, you're right in that. What hackers have been doing over the past years is really focusing on the more kind of targeted type of threats, like social engineering attacks that do get through. And what that means is that traditional security is able to block like 98% of the attacks that we're used to, such as spam or malware. But once it gets to those carefully crafted emails, they do get through, and you need to have a solution that is able to block those attacks. And a lot of the time, that requires something more than just a set of sophisticated policies. And that's where I was talking earlier about machine learning and artificial intelligence that really helps to learn, for example, the patterns of communication within the organization, and then identify any anomalous emails, like unusual communication between two people that doesn't usually happen, or the way or email address that your CEO never usually uses to make a request, and you really need to have a sophisticated level of detection when it comes to that. So we've been investing a lot in AI, and what we also found is that just detection is not enough, because one day, sooner or later, an attack unfortunately will get through and will land in users' inboxes. And what you need is a quick response to that attack. So you don't want to just have solutions in place that just block attacks. You want solutions also in place to help you to respond, and respond fast. And usually that process is really manual. So imagine, you work in an organization that has 50, 60, 100, couple of hundred employees even, and one of them reported an attack, and it's inside the user's inboxes. Well, is it inside one user inbox or 100 users' inboxes? How are you going to find it? There are ways, but they're highly manual and they're not automated in any ways. So a lot of the MSPs, for example, will work with the smaller size organizations that don't have resources in place to go and search for all of the attacks and contact every individual within the organization to remove that attack. So you want to have tools that help you with incident response, and that's one of the areas that we've been investing quite a lot, automating that incident response for organizations, and then also providing these tools for the MSPs who can then take these tools and use it for their customers, and a lot of the time, monetize on additional services that they can provide when it comes to cleanup and incident response. So this is a great investment for us to make our customers safer, and for MSPs to make additional profits and additional revenue while making their customers safer at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And by the way, feel free to mention any specific Barracuda tools, because I know you've got a big sort of catalog there. So you mentioned about the incident response. Is there a specific tool within the Barracuda portfolio that would help with that?
Yeah. So 3 years ago, we've launched forensics and incident response, and we've had a lot of success with that. And actually, recently, just a couple of months ago, we've launched an additional capability within that called automated workflows. And what it does, it's basically completely automates your response. So let's say you want you have a specific playbook for which you want to respond to phishing attacks. If I receive the same emails being reported to me by 5 employees, I just wanted to remove it automatically. I don't even want to go in and look at the email. I know it's probably bad. So set up that automated workflow for your response, and technology will take care of that. Zero resources necessary from you. So we really found that our forensics incident response capability helps organizations to save time from hours in responding to attacks to just minutes. And when it comes to attacks, seconds matter sometimes, because you only need one individual to click on the email, and boom,
away you go.
Yeah.
In terms of the attacks, what are the trends that you're seeing in email security as an industry?
So the one of the biggest trends we're probably seeing is that email threats are really succeeding, and they are increasing in their complexity. It's a lot of the time it is kind of like a bit of a race. Security vendors and organizations against hackers who are just, in a lot of times, just as smart, as innovative as security organizations would be. And what we've seen in the past 5 to 7 years, and particularly in the last kind of few years, is this shift from a volumetric type of attacks. So think about, spam and malware and all that stuff, to a more targeted type of threats, like social engineering attacks. And we've also seen the shift from an individual attacker, like just creating a campaign of spray and pray approach from the garage someplace and trying to see if somebody will click on the link, or if the email will land actually in users' inboxes, to organized criminal enterprises really taking advantage of email, popularity of email, and to spread attacks, ransomware, and they're really organized, and they have a lot of resources. They have researchers, they have programmers, they're organized, they research the targets really carefully, and they're really not focusing on just getting inside and destroying your data and just raising havoc. What they want is the money. It's always about the money. So they are looking for a return on their investment, and usually in millions.
Yeah. As these attacks are getting more sophisticated, presumably they're becoming more difficult to detect. Would that be true? Or, and how can we help MSPs to detect these threats?
Yeah, they're definitely, for sure, they're so much more difficult to detect than they were before. And, don't get me wrong, there's 90, as I said, I think earlier on, like 97% of attacks, we're pretty good at detecting. So any of those high volume attacks that we know are coming from a bad sender or a bad IP, or has some kind of malicious payload, like a link leading to malware or a bad attachment, there are a lot of great technologies that are incredibly accurate at detecting those attacks. The attacks that are difficult to detect are those impersonation type of attacks that don't actually have any obviously malicious payload. We've all heard of business email compromise attacks, hopefully, and are all aware of what those things are. But that's a kind of a newer type of attack that is becoming really, really difficult to detect, because what hackers are doing is that they're going and they're registering their Gmail accounts, which have a very high reputation. They're not going to use it to spam and send 10,000 emails out. They will go on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on other social media. They will research the targets. They will understand the structure within the organization. They will pick the target, and they will write an email from that Gmail account impersonating an individual of authority of some kind within the organization or the partner or a customer. And it will have no payload of any kind. It will have no link. It will have no attachment. There is nothing for email gateway to be triggered and to say, hey, you know what? This email is a bad email, because it's not a bad email. It's a good email. It comes from a Gmail and it asks for some help. There is nothing malicious about that. How are you going to detect that? That's a really difficult email to detect. What hackers are also doing is that they're almost taking it a step further. They are able to use these attacks to take over accounts and then almost insert themselves in the middle of a conversation. For example, we've had a conversation, like you have a lot of people from outside the organization that you will email back and forth to. You probably have some vendors that you work with on a regular basis. So if your vendor's account got hacked, what hackers are doing is they look at the history of your communication. They see that, you've talked to this individual before. They go ahead, they register a domain that looks really similar to your domain, miss a letter, misspell one letter, and send an email pretending to be you to your vendor and saying, hey, you know what? Here's the new account information for you to wire some money on. And you don't know, and your vendor doesn't know, because they think this is a legitimate conversation. I've talked to this guy before. I know, we've had the relationship. And that's what makes it really difficult to detect. And, conversation hijacking, the vendor impersonation is like some of this new attacks that we've only seen the real rise over the past 12 to 24 months, and a big problem in some industries.
Yeah, I mean, it's very impressive from one perspective, but also terrifying from another. I spoke to a UK-based MSP very recently who was in exactly that same situation that you mentioned with a client where the hacker had actually inserted themselves in between, sent an email from a domain that was one letter difference. So the and they actually said, oh yeah, exactly, we're changing the bank details, can you transfer the money to this account? And thankfully this end user just had the presence of mind to get in touch with their MSP and say, is this real? Is this an actual thing? And it, because otherwise it could have cost them tens and tens of thousands of pounds. So it is terrifying. I guess from that perspective, Olesia, what advice would you give to MSPs in terms of educating their clients to these new type of threats that are out there?
Well, definitely educate. So, you want to take time to first educate yourself in many ways and find out what are those latest threats, and it's good to keep up with that. And Barracuda can help. Like with Barracuda, we regularly publish research on the latest threats that we find, and there's a couple of resources that you can take a look. The good starting point is our 13 email threats ebook. Great ebook, defines
really good ebook, by the way. Very strong. Yeah.
So take a look at that, and make sure that you understand all of those threats. And this is all we see among our customers every day. And send it to your customer as well. Send to people you work with so that they know, and that they can sit down, look at those threats, and figure out, can I really protect myself against all of those? Do my employees know all of those? Am I training them to recognize them? And then work with your customers to develop those strategies, to educate them, to put the right set of protection for them, right set of response tools for those as well.
Yeah, and we'll include a link to that ebook in the show notes for this podcast, because it really is a great ebook, not only for MSPs, but to share with clients. I want to talk some more about the wealth of education that Barracuda have got available. But before we do that, you work with so many MSPs of all shapes and sizes. Would you say there's one mistake that you see MSPs making when it comes to keeping their clients safe?
What I would say is that maybe one of the things that MSPs are missing out on is a lot of the time we kind of get into this I know what I'm doing. I know the type of technologies and the type of protection that my customers need because it worked before. Well, what worked before may not work anymore. So it's important to review some of those materials like the 13 email threat types and review what kind of protection that you provide for your customers today. You don't want to just kind of stop at the threat prevention level. Preventing threats is very important, but while you prevent 99% of threats, you want to make sure that 1% you still have a plan for that. So do you only have a gateway in place? Is that enough? Because it's probably not. You want to investigate other solutions that will help you prevent those threats. Are your customers educating their users? Are you helping them? Do you have a security awareness program in place? If you don't, you probably want to, because you want to make sure that they know about all of those business email compromise and conversation hijacking, and not just able to recognize those attacks, but know what to do with it. Like a lot of the time, individuals will see an email that looks bad, but like, I'm not going to click on it, but I'm not going to report it either. But they have to, because that will really help with threat hunting and being able to find out if that is a part of a bigger threat for organization. And then also, develop a response plan, because, no matter how much you train and what kind of technology and filters you put in place, unfortunately, sooner or later, something will get through. The biggest companies in the world with the best security in the world get hacked.
Yeah.
So everybody can get hacked. So make sure you have a response plan in place so you can minimize the damage, so you can understand the scope of the attack, so you can stop it before it spreads and causes an organization to go out of business sometimes. And one of the most important parts of the response plan is not just speed of the response, but ability to protect your data. Because organizations, the most valuable thing they have for most organizations is the data. If the data gets cracked, if data gets encrypted, if I cannot get access to my data anymore, a lot of the time, I cannot work anymore. And protecting and backing up that data so you can restore it in case you lost it, whether that's due to attack or accidental loss, is very, very important. It should be part of any security plan that you have for customers.
Yeah, this has got to be a multi-layered approach, isn't it? I think the days where we can rely on just one layer of security have long since gone, which probably explains why Barracuda's catalogue of products, there's multiple different products in there to keep people safe. You mentioned an incident response plan. Can you give any suggestions for MSPs listening to this who don't have an incident response plan? Where would they get started with that? Are there any external resources you could recommend?
Yeah, so the good place to get started is to find tools that help you automate. Like, this is your number one stop, and Berkeley can help. I talked about forensics and incident response, and getting your getting that automated incident response in place is a good starting point. We also at Berkeley have a number of resources that you can reference as well that will help, like almost like a checklist to help you build out your incident response. So we have some blogs, we have some webinars to educate yourself if you want to dive deeper into that, and get hold of our checklist and go through that and see if you have all of the things that you have in place, and then start working with your customers to figure out what will work for them as well, in terms of the response, what kind of solutions they already have in place, and how you can use that to build into that incident response plan.
Yeah. And again, we'll include in the show notes for this podcast all of the links to all of the resources that Olesia is talking about here, because there are a lot of really high quality resources on Barracuda's website. I want to rewind a little bit. So we've talked about a little bit about spear phishing and the idea that some cyber criminals are targeting specific individuals within organizations, perhaps playing the long game there. But and the fact that it's not just big businesses who get targeted here, small businesses, all sorts of organizations, charities, nonprofits, everybody really is potentially going to be attacked here. Even at the SMB level, we're seeing more MSPs reporting that their clients have been hit by ransomware. What can MSPs be doing to protect their clients from ransomware? Is there any specific steps they should be taking right now?
Yeah, ransomware can be really devastating. We ran a number of webinars and other events for our customers, and a lot of the time we will ask them a question: which email attacks, which one of the following threats keeps you up at night, or which ones do you think you're most concerned about? And I've been doing this for a few years, and it's always been phishing and social engineering. But over the past year, there's a real shift. Like when we start putting ransomware in, everybody's concerned about ransomware. And ransomware attacks have been devastating over the past 12 months, and they've been growing in their complexity and in some ways audacity, because they no longer ask you for a few $1,000s or $100,000. They ask for millions of dollars, and it's a really expensive attack, and it's a really sophisticated one, because traditionally what happened with ransomware is that you will get, let's say, an email. If the email is probably one of the main kind of delivery vehicles for a ransomware attack. And usually you will get an email that will have an attachment or link that will have a malicious code associated with that. And that is basically a ransomware that will encrypt your data. But with advances in protection and technology, we're able to scan those links and those attachments. And even if we've never seen this type of malware before, we're able to detect an unusual activity of the attachment and block that and not deliver it to the end users. So what hackers are starting doing is that they figured that out, and they think, okay, well, I'm not going to attach my attachment to the inbox anymore, to my email, so delivered to the inbox. I will send an email with no attachments, so I can steal your credentials. So instead of asking you to download an attachment or go to the link and download the file from there, they send you to a phishing site that will ask you for your credentials, for example. So it's a multi-step approach. It's a slightly different one, because once they're inside your account, they're inside the organization. So you want to make sure that your email is protected from not just the ransomware as a malware attack, but from a phishing attack, from account takeover and compromise. Once you've protected your email, your next step is to make sure that your applications are protected. Because if they're inside the organization, what they might do is get hold of your applications and spread the malware and ransomware attack through your applications. So make sure your apps are protected. But you know what? Sometimes, as I've said this a number of times, things happen, and you may have the best protection, but ransomware is still got you. So what do you need to do? You need to recover. And to recover, you need to make sure that your data is protected. So protect your data. That's your last kind of stance against a ransomware attack. And especially if you're on Office 365, and a lot of small organizations are on Office 365, because did you know that Microsoft Office 365 actually does not back up your data? A lot of companies think they do, but it's only backed up for around 30 days or so. After that, it's not backed up. And in fact, they tell you to go and work with a third party, and Barracuda can back up your data in the cloud safely. So if you are hit by a ransomware, you can really recover really quickly and continue with your day.
Yeah, and you've made a really important point there. So I know lots of MSPs listening to this, and I have this conversation a lot where they say, hey, our clients are using Microsoft 365, Office 365. They're using Google Workspace. Microsoft and Google keep us protected. And I say to them, yes, sort of, but not completely. So what you just said about using a third-party backup tool on top of that, I think that's a really important point, isn't it? Because, whilst Microsoft and Google and the other players in this market do want to keep you safe, perhaps they when it comes to restoring data, it's not nearly as good as using a third-party product, is it?
It's Office 365, as I mentioned, themselves tell you need to go and back up your data. Like, this is just not, we will not do that for you. So, and there's a lot of other a lot of other things that when it comes to Microsoft, they've developed a set of great security and productivity products, but a lot of other organizations are building on top of that. And they want to build this kind of an environment around the brands for other organizations to build solutions for Office 365, because the more security solutions other organizations build for them, the data protection and other type of things that are needed to work for Office 365, the more organizations will adopt Office 365 because they know they have choices in the way that they protect the environments and make themselves more productive.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to give a shout out actually to one of the Barracuda tools on the website, a free tool that I think is really cool. The Barracuda Office 365 email threat scanner. You offer that for free. How does that service work if somebody's not familiar with it?
Oh yeah, great tool to mention here, and it's Barracuda Office 365 email threat scanner is a free tool, and you can go and sign up for it today. If you're on Office 365, all you need is your admin credentials. So it'll take a couple of minutes to sign up. What it does is it's basically allows our AI to go and scan your email environment, looking back, I think around 12 months, and find out what's hiding inside your users' inboxes. Did you get attacked and you never realized? Is there a phishing attack waiting for somebody to click on the malicious link? And we will give you a report. It takes depends on the size of your organization, but takes just a few hours for most companies. And we've run the scan for thousands and thousands of organizations, and I think in like 95% of the time we find something, at least one email. Most of the time, a lot more than just one email. It's just a great tool to see, where your gaps are really in email security. And for MSPs, it's a great tool to showcase Barracuda solutions and to say, hey, what you have is not enough. You want to know what Barracuda can help you with, how they can make it better. Run the scan, and I'll call you back in 3 hours and we can talk about it. And it's a great tool, great sales tool, great security tool.
And free as well. Again, we will include a link to it in the show notes. But for any MSP listening, not familiar with it, the Barracuda Office 365 email threat scanner, go and check it out, because as Olesia says, it is a great sales tool as well. So if you're speaking to a new client or a prospective client, run the scan across there and immediately perhaps highlight something that a previous IT company or their previous tools have not been able to highlight. It's a really good way to build up that credibility. And talking of credibility, when I think of Barracuda, the one thing I really appreciate about the company is that you place such a high value on education. You've got, we've already touched upon this in our conversation, Olesia, once, but you've got this huge library of white papers. You've got ebooks. You've got blog posts on your website. The educational site, Smarter MSP, that William, Lindsay, and the team put together, I think is incredible. And I'm not just saying that because I write for the site. I really do think it's a magnificent resource. But for any MSPs listening, they might question, well, what's the return on investment that Barracuda see from all of this educational activity? And the reason I ask you that question, Olesia, is MSPs, we've been talking about them educating their customers, their clients, people might be thinking, well, what's in it for me? What's the return on investment of doing all this education?
Well, you're right. We do have a lot of resources. And one of the reasons why we have a lot of resources is because the threat landscape is changing constantly. We have to keep up with this. And this is why you also need to educate your customers and yourself, because the threat landscape is changing. If you are not going to follow what's going on in the industry 2 years from now, your customers will be vulnerable. And if they are vulnerable, they're not going to be your customers anymore. They will go and find somebody else who is able to protect them better. So you do want to keep up with them, and you do want to educate your customers as well, because it's not just on you to keep yourself safe, to keep your customers safe. It's on your customers to keep themselves safe as well. So, if you understand what keeps them up at night, if you understand how they're being attacked, then you will understand what you need to do to help them. And then you will be able to put together the right set of solutions for them. And that will just lead to a better win rate for you, for less churn in the long run, for a higher ACV for yourself. So, it's really is a kind of like a win-win situation here. So over time, just keep up with this. You subscribe to Barracuda's blog. Every month we put out a threat research on the blog, and you can see what's the latest threats in email, in application security, in network security. What are the things that I need to look out for? What are the things I need to pay attention to?
Yeah. And again, huge shout out for Smarter MSP, barracudamsp.com, all the different sites there. So much good stuff. We'll include all the links in the show notes. Olesia, I want to change tact just a little bit. You're a really highly respected lady in the tech industry, very, very successful at what you do. To rewind a little bit earlier in your career, what made you choose a career in tech and security?
Yeah, good question. It's always changing. It's always current. Like, technology is all around us. If you think about it, 20 years ago, where we were with technology, and where we are today, even 10 years ago, it's changed so much, and it's just never boring. And there's always something new to learn, something new to do, and it's all around us. And security, and specifically, it's also very important. Like, I do believe that it's everybody will always need some form of security solution. Hackers are not going anywhere. They're just going to change the tactics. They're just getting smarter as we are starting to use machine learning. So they are, and that's attracted me. It's just job security, right?
Yeah,
I feel like I will always need for security, need for technology will always be there. And it's a fascinating space that is just evolving around us, and a lot to learn, a lot to do. And, being in security feels like you're on the good side, fighting the bad guys.
You are a superhero of the IT industry. Absolutely. If I, again, as your career has taken different steps and you've grown as a person, for any other women listening today, what steps have you taken to progress your career, to stay current in this industry?
Well, there's a lot to learn, and we talked a lot about education, and I think it is a big part of that. You need to know what's going on in the space, but you also need to make sure that you like the space, because it's really difficult to learn and to read up on things that you don't enjoy. So surround yourself with people that like you, that you can learn from. And, you may want to have like success right away, but sometimes you're just better off to really taking a little bit of time and understanding what your strengths are and what you really enjoy, because it's really hard to be successful at things you don't like to do. So figure that out first, I think.
Yeah, and not much fun if you're having to grind results out instead of enjoying what you do. And you clearly enjoy what you do, Olesia. It was wonderful to see. You said you chose a career in technology and security because you like the constant challenges and the constant way the industry changes. What do you think we could do as an industry, as an IT industry, as a managed service provider industry, to encourage more girls and women to work in the technology space?
Well, I think the industry has changed a lot over the past couple of decades, and I'm already surrounded by a lot of women in my organization, and the number is growing every year. And many of them are very accomplished, and many of them had many years of success and long careers. And it's great to see, because they do provide a lot of guidance and mentorship that is very encouraging for younger women that might want to enter the space. So, and there's a lot of opportunity. There's around something like 3.5 million cybersecurity vacancies around the globe today. And it's, there are jobs. There are jobs out there for men or women to take. And this industry is getting very, very diverse with time. And a lot of the tech companies starting to offer internships, and they have been for a while. So, encouraging diversity within those programs will definitely help and encourage a lot of people to join the space. And maybe also, while the industry is changing, the next step maybe to work a little bit on the image of the industry to change as well, because I think there might be a little bit of misconception as to what is actually going on, and how diverse it is already, and how many opportunities there are for people of all sorts of backgrounds and types and abilities.
Yeah, and I hope that, recording these podcast episodes with people like yourself, Olesia, and the other amazing women in tech, we can sort of raise the profile a little bit and say, to other women in whatever industry, to girls coming out of school, technology, is not. It's not just all about boys and toys playing with things. Mm-hmm. This is an open space now, and there are women like yourself, blazing a trail here and really doing good work that is making a difference every single day. So thank you for the work that you do. You mentioned earlier about mentoring and the culture that you've got at Barracuda, mentoring people. Who would you say has been a positive influence on your career, and why?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to have a lot of great people to mentor me over the years, and if I really think about it, it will probably be not as much as a who, because so many people had an impact on who I am and what I've learned over the years. But for me, it probably was more of a place where I started, and the way I started my career. I kicked off my career at Forrester Research, and that was the first kind of tech-related role that I had. And although that was a very long time ago, and I had a lot of different positions since then, it's really more than any other company has managed to make a great foundation for me. And when I think about it, what is it that my first job gave me, and why I think it's so important? It's that particular roles, and early in my career, I didn't really focus on developing an understanding of a specific market or a product. It was more developing skills that I've taken with me throughout my career, like critical thinking, or ability to dissect a problem, find a solution, writing, presentation skills. These are really foundational skills, and I was able to have the best teachers in the best place to learn those skills and focus earlier on them in my career. So when I took them with me to every single job that I've had since. So my earlier role helped me to prepare me for my later roles, and then the knowledge about the products and the market those are things you can learn and you will continue to learn over the years. But those fundamental skills, they are so much harder to develop. So it's really is better to start early and find a good place and a good mentor to help you develop those.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a virtual mentor today to all of our listeners with all the information that you've shared. Really, really appreciate it. If anybody wants to find out more about Barracuda, then we've got a special page up at tub.co/Barracuda MSP. And Olesia, before we go, for anybody who wants to continue the conversation with you, wants to reach out to you, wants to know more about your role and what you do within the managed service industry, how can they find you online to have a chat with you?
I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest one. You can find me on LinkedIn, so just feel free to connect. Feel free to send me a message. Take a look at Barracuda website. There are a lot of blogs that you can follow me on blogs. There's also a lot of webinars. If you look through our past webinars on the events page, you can find some other things and some other thoughts from myself and my colleagues there too.
Yeah, you are a very, very smart bunch of people at Barracuda. So thank you for what you're doing to raise awareness of cybersecurity within the MSP industry. Much appreciated. Olesia, I know how busy you are. So thank you for getting up early on the West Coast today and talking to me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me here. Really enjoyed that conversation. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for joining. That is all for this week's Tub Talk. We'll look forward to speaking to you next time. Hey folks, Richard here. Thanks for listening today. I know you've got a ton of options for who you listen to nowadays, so I really appreciate your support. Do you have any feedback on this episode? Ideas for future guests? Tweet me at Tublog using the hashtag TubTalk. I respond to every tweet and really appreciate your feedback. This season of Tub Talk is brought to you by Barracuda MSP. Every 11 seconds, there's a new ransomware attack. There are so many ransomware attacks, governments are now classifying them as terrorism. You've seen the news. Oil pipelines, universities, corporations, all paying millions of dollars. It's not just big companies that are being targeted. Small and medium-sized businesses are becoming victims too. So what are you as an MSP doing to help your clients from becoming the next statistic? Barracuda MSP is here to help ensure you and your clients are prepared and protected against the inevitable ransomware attack. 1. Attacks start with an innocent-looking email that tricks users into revealing usernames and passwords. Barracuda MSP can train your clients on your behalf to recognize an attack and enable you to deploy anti-phishing technology. 2. Secure clients' web applications. File sharing services, web forms, and e-commerce sites often have weak points hackers are looking for. If hackers get into these applications, they go after business data. Protect access to these applications so hackers can't get onto your client's network. 3. Backup is a must. Today's solutions make it simple and fast to protect archives and backup or restore an up-to-date copy of an entire server or an individual file. Let Barracuda MSP help you strengthen your ransomware protection plans. As a special offer for Tub Talk listeners, visit barracudamsp.com/TubTalk and receive a free first month on any subscription you start with Barracuda MSP. That's barracudamsp.com/TubTalk and receive a free first month on any subscription you start with Barracuda MSP. Hey team, this is Richard again. Just one more thing before you take off, and that is MSP Insights. Now, every Tuesday, I share my thoughts on the business of IT with you, the managed service community. Thousands of managed service providers already subscribe to MSP Insights. It's easy to sign up, easy to cancel. MSP Insights is basically a short email from me every Tuesday without fail with advice on growing your IT business, plus cool resources I've found, discovered, or started exploring that week. It's kind of like my diary of cool things and often includes articles or books I've read, tools I've discovered, and events I think you'd be interested in, often sent to me by my friends and Tub Talk podcast guests. So if that sounds fun, a short tiny bite of MSP goodness every Tuesday, and you'd like to try it out, just go to go.tub.co/Tuesday. That's go.tub.co/Tuesday. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.